AskReddit by Holzak99. What's his story where the bad guys are actually, completely, 100% right, to the point where it's weird the story keeps calling them the bad guys? After being forced to watch this multiple times by the girlfriend, both Gilmore Girls and nearly everyone they dated, especially Rory. How dare he not let me cheat on him or randomly string him along for years? Everyone in Stars Hollow are blind to the walking catastrophes that are the Gilmores. All Iceman ever wanted was for Maverick to respect safety protocols instead of hot dogging all the time. The entire sequel is based on this premise. Iceman knows that the current commander is willing to let the pilots die to take out this target even though the safety protocols would say to go higher, and Iceman, who cares about the lives of his fellow pilots, knows that Maverick is the only one who is capable of teaching these pilots to fly to save their own lives. He's still the hero, still doing the right thing by the pilots. Mr. Belding from Saved by the Bell. Zach Morris is a fucking sociopath and his friends enabled and in some cases cheerfully alongside him. Ever watch Funny or Die's Zach Morris's trash series? Iceman in Top Gun. I used to work in naval aviation and he was totally right. Maverick was dangerous and unreliable. Edit. I really wasn't expecting this comment to blow up. I fully understand the meaning of bad guy, but in this instance I took it to mean anything from antagonist, villain, foil, or adversary, but this is Reddit and people are super pedantic and literal. My role was as a naval flight surgeon, so besides being my squadron's doctor I flew in the backseat with them, sat on mishap investigation boards, like the one depicted in the movie, and generally helped determine fitness for flight duty. Maverick wouldn't have lasted long with the antics he pulled and his personality eye roll, but where is the fun and drama in that? He really just seems calm and minding his own business in the original. Professional even. Mr. Wilson. I was a tween when the movie came out. I was infuriated when Martha had to go make sandwiches when the steaks got paint all over them. F. Dennis. Christopher Lloyd's character scared the crap out of me as a child. The homeless guy. That weird episode of Friends where Phoebe is convinced her dead mother is reincarnated as a cat so she tries to steal it from its owners, and Ross is presented as the bad guy for pointing out how ridiculous this is. I read that this plot was actually suggested by one of the main writers who had recently lost their own parent. Nobody wanted to point out that it was stupid because they didn't want to seem insensitive, so they all just went with it. Jack and the Beanstalk. Some dick finds the giant's house and starts taking all his best stuff. Deleted. Todd and Margot in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I can't imagine living next to someone so inconsiderate. He even caused literal property damage, yet they are still uptight jerks. Yeah, there is an entire class of villains in comedies, especially where the bad guys are simply people who don't want their days and even lives ruined by the wacky fun-loving neighbors co-workers. Every single Donald Duck cartoon. Dude usually just wants to chill out without being bothered, and there's always someone bothering him and then he gets blamed for standing up for his own needs. The older I get, the more I empathize with Donald Duck. Disney understood that back in the day, too. His cartoons were actually more popular than Mickey's because he was more relatable. Ike. When Disney was asked to make a cartoon explaining how income tax helped the war effort during WWII, they chose Donald, because he would be relatively frustrated with the whole process at first but learn how it worked. I'm like 15 minutes into Thor: Love and Thunder and I completely understand Christian Bale's character. Also, once you become pseudo-possessed by a living weapon, are you mentally culpable for your actions? Gore was a victim who was taken advantage of by basically everyone. The entire season of Inhumans. Maximus's right is attempting to free slaves, but the show is telling us to cheer for Black Bolt and the royal family. The ethics in that show are fucking bonkers, man. For those who don't know, everyone in the Inhuman Society gets exposed to gas which randomly mutates them. If the gas gives you a sexy mutation, you get to stay in your home with your family, but if the gas gives you an ugly mutation, you get sent to the mines as a lifelong slave, and the good guys are the people who uphold this system? And the bad guy is the person who thinks that the system is wrong? What the actual fuck, man? How did that shit get greenlit? Red Foreman was right. Eric and his friends were all dumbasses that need a boot in the ass. I agree, but he looked over Lori misdeeds too much. Never really called the bad guy, but Reese with a spoon is definitely the bad guy in Sweet Home Alabama. Her New York fiance is a super good guy and puts up with a crazy bee the whole movie. Most heist movies. Oh, he's doing it to afford medicine for his sick child. Okay, but he just killed 14 security guards, none of whom will be going home to their families now. Lol, in Once Upon a Time, Snow White's character is like wrecking henchmen and random nobody guard types W her bow and arrow, definitely killing PPL. Then she gets to the most evil character at the time, the literal evil queen and reason for all the bad shit going on. What does Snow White do? Decides now that she won't stoop to the queen's level and she will choose Mercy Mayo. Police Academy. They let a bunch of violent, unstable, dishonest deadbeats into the police force, and the chief of police was supposed to be okay with that? He was doing the public a favor by trying to weed out the worst ones. It's a different take, but Mahoney didn't even want to be there in the first place, but I think it was court ordered or something. In fact, most of them were misfits and probably never ever should have worn a uniform. Any rom-com where the main character cheats on their partner with the new love interest that they end up with. Plus the setup that they do to make the audience dislike the current partner in order to make the cheating more palatable is often super contrived. I watched one recently where the only offense the current partner committed was to step briefly out of the main character's company Christmas party to put the finishing touches on closing a huge sales deal at his job. I guess it was supposed to be movie shorthand for him being more interested in his work than in her, but the writers were super lazy about it because his choice seemed pretty reasonable in the moment and he was an otherwise likable character. He totally got shafted. That iceberg in Titanic is just minding its own business when it gets knocked on the head by the sex raft. All I can think of is the SNL Bo and Yang skit. This is a wild pull lol, but High School Musical. I'd be pissed if I worked my ass off for years to get the lead in a musical only for them to give it to someone else who didn't technically attend the auditions. Not to forget that Troy is the villain in HSM 2 for trying to sort out his future as a college basketball player rather than fucking about. Peter Rabbit. He was a thief, a glutton, a trespasser, a burglar, a naughty little rabbit. Meanwhile, Mr. McGregor only wanted to produce something of value and feed his family. Perry Bible Fellowship's take. https://pbfcomics.com/comics/billy-the-bunny/. That guy in B movie. Girlfriend leaves him for a fucking bee. Said B proceeds to gaslight him into thinking he's crazy. Anyway, that movie sure was weird. What about Bob? The therapist was 100% correct to set boundaries with his client. Obviously it went off the rails, but it was so shitty for his family to side with Bill Murray's character over Richard Dreyfuss' character. Especially because, during production, Bill Murray went off book so much it got Dreyfuss very pissed off. His anger at Murray in those later scenes was very real, although after the movie came out Dreyfuss said Murray's take had actually worked and made the film better. Law-abiding citizen does it well from both characters' perspective. Deleted. Hades in mythology. Most of the time seen as the bad guy because he rules over the underworld, but he was sent there and he's just doing his job, maintain the souls inside, deliver punish when needed etc. And Zeus is a horrible guy. Hades is one of the most mild gods in there. When Hades came to realize how messed up the world was now that he had accidentally caused winter to be a thing, He used his powers to safeguard all the seeds of the world beneath the earth during that season so that they would be ready to bloom when his wife returned to her mother. Name one other Greek god that ever admitted to making a mistake and worked to correct it for the sake of humans. Mrs. Doubtfire because Pierce Brosnan was really nice and was a lonely middle-aged man who wanted a family, but Mrs. Doubtfire was so mean to him and even tried to kill him with pepper knowing he was allergic. Don't forget that drive-by fruiting. Cabin in the woods. Eldritch horrors will kill everything if occasionally some people aren't sacrificed to some silly ghosts or whatever. Yeah, and the 2 people who cause the end of the world still die instantly anyway. They sacrificed everything for nothing. Katherine Heigl's character in Knocked Up. When I watched it as a teenager I thought she was a frigid bitch who needed to lighten up and let Seth Rogen's character have fun. Now, as an adult in my 30s I'm like wow, that dude did not have his shit together. I get why she was stressed out. Edit, please stop with the actually comments. I don't care. The biggest gripe I have with that movie is it pushed the baby will make him grow up lie. No it won't. Little Mermaid. It's my favorite Disney movie, but King Triton was not wrong to not want his teenage daughter shacking up with an adult man. Edit. Since I can't respond to every post making the assertion King Triton was not the villain BC Ursula was the villain, there can be more than one villain. There can also be varying levels of antagonism. Ursula was very obviously the primary villain in TLM. However, this question asked us to identify a character that was essentially painted in a bad light to make the viewer feel a certain way about them when, in reality, that character was not as bad as the writing tried to make it seem. In my opinion, King Triton fits that description. As an adult I understand his concerns, but as a child he came across as mean, overbearing, and as one of the bad guys trying to stop true love. A 16-year-old wanted to run off and get married, and to add insult to injury she had to make permanent physical changes to her body. You'll have to forgive me if I empathize with King Triton more so now that I'm in. Fenris from the Norse mythology. 1. Taken from his home. 2. Everyone was afraid of him even though he did nothing. 3. Betrayed. 4. Chained. 5. Sword stuck in his open mouth, preventing him from closing it. 6. Laughed. 7. Imprisoned for many years. Tell me anyone who would not become crazy after something like this. He was also clever enough to know of the trap and very likely wouldn't dare to fight Odin, being aware of the consequences. Ironic is that we have nations doing worse for less. I think it's the most common interpretation of the mythology that the Norse gods doom themselves in their paranoia, like because they knew Fenrir was prophesied to try and kill them, they inadvertently provided him with the motivation to do so. Shere Khan just wanted to eat. He just wanted to keep humans out of the jungle too. Peter Pan. The pirates are just grown-up lost boys that he brought to Neverland. They just want to leave and return to their lives. Also, if you read the book, he's been kidnapping Wendy's female ancestors for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. Every time the laundry and dirty dishes stack up too high, he goes to Earth and finds a Wendy to come clean up for him so he never, ever has to clean up for himself. At the end of the novel, he makes a deal with Wendy's parents that she can come to Neverland to take care of him for a few weeks every year. And when she gets too old, he takes her daughter, and then her daughter, and then her daughter. The Wendys never get to go on any of the adventures, of course, just stay back at headquarters and cook and clean for a team of disgusting and poorly behaved boys.